We have breaking news about the role the U.S. military may have played in the demise of Colonel Gadhafi. NBC News has confirmed that a U.S. drone fired upon a convoy carrying the former dictator as he attempted to flee his hometown of Sirte. Exactly what happened next is an evolving story. Our chief Pentagon correspondent Jim Miklaszewski has been working his sources over the day. Jim, what are you learning about this drone strike?
Well, Martin, U.S. military officials are telling us, in fact, that it was a U.S. military Predator drone that fired a Hellfire missile directly at Muammar Gadhafi's 15-vehicle convoy. In addition, one NATO warplane also fired a rocket at that missile at that very convoy. Now, according to the officials, several of the vehicles were either struck or disabled. The rest of them scattered. Now, it appears that Muammar Gadhafi was obviously in or near one of the vehicles that was struck. And it appears that what he did was make his way to a nearby drainage pipe alongside the highway where his rebel captors eventually found him, took him into custody. And that video where we actually see him alive and in custody of those rebel forces before he apparently died somehow in an ambulance on his way from Sirte to Misrata. Now, what's interesting about this, as you know, Martin, those Predator drones are not just there to fire missiles, but their primary mission is surveillance. So it's very likely, given the kind of intense fighting over Sirte and U.S. intelligence that said Muammar Gadhafi is in Sirte, that Predator drone was hovering over Sirte when Muammar Gadhafi made his way into that convoy and out of Sirte. So it is more likely than not that the U.S. military already knew that Muammar Gadhafi was in that convoy when they fired upon it, which, of course, raises the question about U.S. claims that they were not out to actually kill Muammar Gadhafi.
Indeed.
In this case, it appears they were.
Indeed. Jim, you rub shoulders with more military personnel sources than I have cups of tea. What's the atmosphere there today? Is there a sense that this has been a job well done?
Well, particularly because the U.S. military, although it was very involved in one of the driving military forces when military operations and strikes were first launched against Muammar Gadhafi's regime there in Libya, the U.S. military, while it remained active, did take somewhat of a back seat. So even though there were some initial complaints about the fact that most of the NATO countries, the British, the French, the Italians, were not up to carrying out this mission militarily, in the end, the United States was able to at least visibly take a back seat, although, quite frankly, the U.S. military remained very actively involved, particularly in terms of surveillance and launching occasional airstrikes against other Libyan military targets just as recently as a couple of days ago. So I think everyone is quite pleased at the way it eventually turned out, although, again, the U.S. military had to carry the load in the beginning.
Indeed. I mean, we have to salute their intelligence, though. I mean, when you think about Al-Awlaki was hit by a drone, Osama bin Laden was discovered in a safe house, and now they've noted and followed Gadhafi and located his convoy. This is pretty impressive intelligence, isn't it?
Well, it is. And in this case, it was fairly obvious since intelligence had indicated that Gadhafi was there in Sirte and that the rebels over the past 3 days had launched very intensive attacks aimed at Gadhafi loyalists, that it was clear that eventually, to paraphrase it a little bit, that the cockroaches would eventually scatter. And that's what happened here, apparently. And the drone, the U.S. military drone, was right on top of it when he did.
NBC's Jim Miklaszewski, as always, thank you so much.
You bet.